All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to keep you long. I just wanted to speak on something that I tend to speak sometimes about, but due to the platform I've been given, I have to be careful on what I say because it's very selective on what things are allowed and what things aren't allowed. But as of right now, I don't care. There's something very wrong with this country. Um, I feel like it's sad. It's very sad for this country to be promoted as this greatest country on earth. And mind you, I love this country, but the notion that the United States of America, is the greatest country on earth, that is false advertising. It is a lie because there are far too many things wrong with this country for us to even to try and boast like that. And I'm not saying that this is something that everyone is calling America. Just those who are kind of blind to what's going on in America right now. Sorry if I'm putting you out there, but I have to. Um, this country is a divided country, and there's far too much wrong with it. Let me just go ahead and start with the main plot point here. Um, there's so much wrong with this country where it points to racism and how people of one ethnicity treats people of another ethnicity. This whole notion that a person's values or a person's worth is based on based on their skin color and where they come from. This whole idea, it's stupid. It really is. It has always been stupid. Whoever came up with this idea that if your skin color is different colored than mine, or well, in my case, darker than my skin color, then you're not as privileged as I am. You're not as smart as I am. You're not as qualified to do what I can do because my skin color is different than yours. And this isn't just saying this isn't just saying uh, white people versus black people or Latino people versus Asian people or whatever ethnicity you want to pit against one another. This is people who think race decides everything. I I've myself, me and my family, we've experienced moments where people thought less of us because of where we came from, because of our background, because of our skin color, because we are black. And it's unfortunate that this is a country that still allows this. I'm confused. Like I don't understand why this is still something that we have to tell people is wrong, because there are far too many cases happening right now, especially recently, where people are abusing their power to murder other people, such as one George Floyd, who was murdered. He was not accidentally killed. He was killed on purpose. Many of you know the story, as I know as well. He was arrested, and the circumstances right now, they don't matter because he's no longer with us. A man's dead. He's no longer here. So the circumstances don't justify why he died, and it confuses me. I'm not an expert in being a police officer. I'm not an expert in this country's judicial system, which is, by all accounts, fundamentally broken, as it tends to, more often than not, allow people of one side of the spectrum to go away scot-free with barely any consequences. More cases than not. Not saying that it happens all the time. Whereas people from a different background can get prosecuted, tried, and given like the worst possible sentences. Um, Here's where I draw the line on certain things. Um, what applies to one should apply to another. If a man is killed, the man who killed the individual who killed that man should be tried to the fullest extent of the law that pertains to that crime. And here we are in a country where that can happen often. And it's almost as if there's hoops and hurdles that one has to go through in order to fully prosecute a person. Whereas, say, a person, I don't know, of a different shade of skin color, that can happen. They're instantly prosecuted, they're treated in the worst extent of the law without any due process. And I just get confused sometimes. I don't want to bring this longer than I need to, but this country is sick. This country has a apparent sickness that keeps it from being great. And I know for every individual out there that is working hard to make sure the lives of other people are doing better, for civil officers who are working to make sure that people are all treated fairly, prosecuted fairly, judged fairly. There's always individuals who will disrupt that flow, and it just sends the whole country into chaos. I and back to the George Floyd situation. I'm not, like I said, I'm not an expert in being a police officer, nor do I know the inner workings of it. But I have enough common sense to know that if you arrest a person, they're supposed to be taken in alive. Uh, I'm pretty sure there's nowhere in the handbook that says that you're supposed to restrain this person and then treat this person while they're being restrained lower than what they are. There's nowhere in the handbook that says, well, okay, so we have this man on the ground. We have him handcuffed. He's already arrested. You don't need to go any further than that. But to put your knee on this man's neck and then cause him to say that I can't breathe, and then you ignore these pleas for help, and the man dies because of that, you're wrong. It doesn't matter if you hold a badge. It doesn't matter if how long you've had that badge. It doesn't matter how much training you have or how right you think you are. You're wrong. That's a human life that you have no right of taking. Police officers are not supposed to be the executioners. That is not your job. It never was your job. The only time a deadly force should be used as a police officer is if it is a life and death situation and it is the absolute last resort. But when you have a man already in custody, you shouldn't go any farther than that. So, you're wrong. You have no right to do that. You literally took a human life because you could. And putting your whole weight on a person's neck till they can't breathe, that's excessive. That's a show of deadly force. You don't need to have a gun in order to apply that. And to use this amount of excessive force, and not only just the police officer himself, but the men around him, just let this happen. It shows you that racism is still strong. It shows you that ignorance is still strong. It is abundantly clear that ignorance is still a recurring theme in the United States of America. It is sad that I'm not overly articulate. I'm not an expert with words, but when I see something wrong, I'm going to say something about it. But it is excessively clear that stupidity is still one of America's most defining traits, and this moment that has happened, it is a clear sign of stupidity, because no smart person would do this and think they'll get away with it. Your name is already known. People are doing things now. There's riots going on. People don't know how to vent their frustration, all because of a system that was built to favor this ideal that one race is above another. That's not the case. It has never been the case. But years ago, hundreds of years ago, it seems that this ideal is still a favorite among people for some odd reason. And if this country is going to get better, it has to acknowledge that it has a problem. Not just sweep it under the rug, not just ignore it, go on with your day, and pretend that since it's not happening right where you are, it doesn't apply to you. A human life is a human life. If that human life is taken purposefully, we can't just sit idly by and say that's okay. Not saying that anyone is saying that, but we can't just let the life of many people, and this has been happening for years. The fact that this has been happening for years just shows you that this is a very apparent problem. But this is a very apparent fact that America needs to change. It really needs to change, because years from now, we should not be telling our kids that racism is wrong. They should already know this. Should be taught in schools that thinking that someone of a race that's different than yours, it is either superior to yours or it's inferior. We're all on the same level. That's how it's always been. That's how it is, but sadly this is not being taught. This is being taught differently to children as they brought up. They're taught to look at people of a different race differently, and it's sad. It really is. This went on a lot longer than I was expecting, but I just kind of wanted to pour my heart out a little bit. The only way this country is going to change is if we change. The only way things are going to get better is if we get better. This country is not going to get better on its own. This stuff should be addressed. Can't just sit idly by and pretend like this isn't happening. Because the fact that this has happened more than once should tell you that this is a very apparent problem. Racism exists, but we need to work hard to get rid of it. And the only way we're going to do that is if we acknowledge it and start working on it. That's all I got.